very many examples so that we can see how we can take advantage of this tool. So just for some introduction is that Digital Earth Africa provides this analysis ready data for the whole continent Landsat Sentinel. And more specifically, we also have the various continental products which we've already used. And now more specifically for today, we are using the Wetlands Insight Tool. So this tool works in a very interesting way. It takes access to the Landsat data, which is in the Digital Africa, and combine this information with fractional cover and water observation from space. And you're able to see some changes in a lake over time. For example, the one before you is an example of a lake in Mali, where we can see the extent of the lake, and we can see the plot on how it has been changed in terms of what is open water and what is wet and what is around the lake in terms of bare soil, etc., etc. So for the purposes of understanding this tool, as much as we run the script, is to see that we have very different results for the different continents. One is that we are using the water observation from space, and there's some algorithm where they use also the fractional cover, which checks for what is green vegetation, what is dry vegetation, as well as what is bare soil. So for the first example, I was able to look at a small desert lake, which is south of Lake Turkana in Kenya, which is very interesting that it normally disappears around some points of the year, which is very unique for some of the lakes that we have, but it's becoming common because of climate change. So with this, after running the tool, I was able to see that over time, there are times even the lake is really dry, like the case of Lake Ngami in the Okavango. And it can be shown from the results, as you can see, towards 2019 and some peaks towards 2021, which is a very interesting tool. So how about I run this tool in another lake? I was able also to see the same for Lake Ngami, a lot of drying around this point of the July of 2019 to 2020, almost a whole year where it was a little bit muddy. And Dr. Kaleboge on this call can actually confirm that this was the case with the lake. How about other lakes? I was able to look at Lake Lunga, which was informed by the National Bureau of Statistics that it normally has very variability, even having a low dry time around the 2015 of towards July, September. It was very dry, and around sometime in 2018 and sometimes around 2020. Then we had increased precipitation around September 2020, where there was a case of flooding. So this also helps us to inform the persons in the various government agency what has really happened over time, and we'll also be able to understand that this might have been reported by the communities which live around here. I also did the same for Lake Bosom Tui, and interesting, there was no much change for this lake. So it means you can try the tool for different areas and you can see some areas have remained very much constant. Would that be the case, Edward, for Lake Bosom Tui?
Yes, Ken, I think there has been pretty much water there for that area.
So no much change has been observed.
Yes, Ken, no much change, not much change there.
Yep. So this is also good because Edward knows the area around Kumasi. So it helps see that we are able to get different results for different areas. So the next one, I went to Weija, just near Accra, and I could see some variabilities. And actually, it's a reservoir, and I saw sometimes there were changes around 2017, 2020. So it means over time, it was not really filled. There are times when it was slightly drying up. And I believe this was of interest for the Water Resource Commission in Ghana, trying to understand this water body. So I also went further and looked at our colleagues in Senegal, the case of Lake Gas, and I could see some interesting changes that the lake has always been at some quite low level, depending on what is around it. So it seems somehow it receded over time, but remained constant. But from what I have heard from the persons, they were saying there was a lot of changes. It has been decreasing over time. Then I went to another one. This is Lake Manantali in Mali, and I could see some changes every year, some decrease, some decrease, some decrease, then some recharge due to rainfall. Then I also went to another example of Sebkal Nahal in Tunisia, and I could see a lot of changes. And what I was able to hear is that it's more of a saline lake, so changing over time based on the situation. It's actually near Tunis, so there's a lot of change over time. So I also went to another place. This is in Rwanda, Lake Burera, which I know Joseph might have heard about it. And I could see not much change has happened around this lake, which is very interesting that it has constantly remained as a lake with some recharges and discharges, but pretty much very, very, very consistent. So it's a very good source of water. The same case with Lake Karango, it has remained very stable with some occasional increases in 2014 and 2019 and fairly remaining normal. Then I also went to Lake Ruero, which is shared between Rwanda and Burundi, and I could see the same. The water body has really remained quite constant, which is very interesting for these lakes in Rwanda. So with that, I wish also to show you how now the tool works. Those are just examples which can really help us first understand what happens if you do several examples. Now with this real world example, is that you can access this Wetland Insight Tool in the real world examples. And as I've shown you, you can see the changes over time for a particular lake. And this particular intervention, I wish to get an area of interest from any volunteer on this call. Yes, for everyone in the call who has an example of an area, because I've done several examples for you, and I wish we can do one so that we can try to understand how this tool works.
Maybe around Lake Nakuru, Kenneth,
okay.
If you haven't done, yeah.
Thank you, Stella. So this one, at least a good percentage of that was setting at a three-month interval. This is guided from here. So the thing with this is that you always have to start the kernel and start it again. Then I have to zoom in so that I can take the best pixels around the particular lake. So also this one is a small exercise for digitization process so that you don't end up putting a road as part of a lake. And then you might have very mischievous results. So is there anyone else with another example? At least I've done many for you. Maybe another thing is, are you aware of lakes which are very dynamic? Like Lake Ngami was very exceptional because, as you can see, disappearing different times of the year, being available sometimes. So Joseph, you agreed with the lakes in Rwanda? They have been consistently?
Yes, actually from 2025, I think, the environmental law was protecting lakes, so prohibiting most of human activities around lakes and lakes in the country. So that's normal, especially for Lake Burera. So we have an hydropower plant there. So near Rugezi wetland, which is on Ramsar. So it is very protected. Yeah, what you did really matches with the reality on field.
So this really confirms why the government is really invested in this exercise. Otherwise, it's very difficult to change the citizens.
So you obey or you are punished. So it's a matter of law enforcement. Here guys are very tough.
Yes, and you can see the results. Otherwise, there will be no more lake for some people in certain areas.
Yeah.
but water is quite a resource, which brings a lot of conflict, as you can see with Lake Chad. So I tried for Lake Chad, but the tool needs some adjustment. I think Edward will be able to assist because as I am digitizing, you'll see the final result will be a polygon, which will give you the size of the polygon, and you'll see how it is. So for this Lake Nakuru, where Stella comes from, you can see the polygon is around 55 square km, which is not so small, but it's reasonable. So just for advice, what I would normally advise is to name your features so that you can see them once they are finished. Otherwise, it will overwrite others and you'll take some time to trace your work. So you can choose to overlay it with any service on the background, but the tool normally runs a few minutes or seconds based on how my connection is and the size of the water body. So I was very happy to hear about Rwanda. And I think for other places, it's a little bit different. So we also joined by Emmanuel Kimgetich. How are you, sir? Thank you, Emmanuel Kimgetich. This one is a student from Dekut, I think a fellow colleague of Stella. So the tool normally runs for a while, computing wetness, most likely 2 or 3 minutes, especially if you're using the 32 GB trial RAM. So it's quite a very informative tool, providing very good results for assessments. I can just go back to the presentation as we accept any questions. I believe Keleboge is in the GMS workshop. Thank you so much for representing us in Cotonou, the Côte d'Ivoire. So once back again, you can see the policy in Rwanda has really been useful. But for the other places, things would have been different based on the situation. But really climate change is taking a toll on the lakes. Like this, Lunga has really been a nightmare for people. Lake Ngami, as you can see, the variability is so, it's really not very easy based on what was presented by Dr. Keleboge. Otherwise, as that one continues, I wish to take any questions or how many of you want to use the tool? I can see Back has raised his hand. Any question for us?
Is it possible to run the wetland tool along the coast just to track changes?
I think it's possible, but the result will not be very good. Most likely that tool will be coastal erosion. You want to look at coastal erosion, which gives you the tides. Victoria.
Just to see like the change, like how we did for the Nakuru, the change in how far the ocean comes in. I guess that could be coastal erosion.
Yes, let me just show you for now as Baku intervenes with his. Yes, Baku. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, my expectation about this tool is that for me, by running it, I want to get a kind of land cover or land user, something, the classification. So for me, we have the water body and around this water body, you have a wetland, we have this kind of area. This is my expectation with this tool, like what we have with WAPS. When you run it after this, you can get the land cover change, something like this. I don't know if it's possible to take in account this classification, this land cover classification around the water body that we have, by saying this is the wetland, this is water, this is something else. This is my expectation about this tool. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much. It's possible, but now, as you can see with the polygon, I was really digitizing next to the the water body. As you saw with the lake in Mali and the one in Botswana, there is a variability of fractional cover inside the lake, which is very interesting because it says that there's a time a lake, the land cover in the lake actually changed, that it was full lake with water, and then it's a water body. It's a land cover land, then it disappears. So that's the objective of the tool, and I wish to show you again for these, the one which I've done for Nakuru, so that we first understand how these how some lakes are really dynamic. That is the first point. And also, how can we work with the policy makers to make sure people are removed when there is a floods. So let me show this first for this presentation, which I was doing. So this is what was asked by Stella. So Lake Nakuru, as you've seen, Stella, there hasn't been much change other than here where there was slightly some decrease and then increase around the 2020 when there was exceptional water. Then you can see it's already full.
Yeah, thank you.
Then going back to Bako's question, I wish to show you Lake Sulunga. So Bako, using this example, this is the extent of the lake. Within the same lake, the result is a plot of when it was water, when it was wet, and when it was dry. And you can see points like towards the end of 2015, it was really dry. And the time I had the discussion with Tanzania, they told me there was floods in the early 2015. People had to be evacuated around the lake. Then it dried. Then the communities went back to the shores. Then they were displaced again in the middle of 2016. Then they moved. Then the lake resided in 2017. Then they moved back. Then there were floods. Then they had to move back. Then it dried towards 2018. Then everybody went back. Then again, they were displaced. So this is what we are trying to understand, how we can advise the people living around the lake. This area around the lake, you might even ask yourself, why do people like it? Because it's very fertile for farming. Whenever it dries, you might find yourself doing some farming around, and you just move with your livestock, and it's easier. Then when you look at this lake in Ghana, Bosomtwe, there's no much changes around, only sometimes when there's some algae or something, which is a green vegetation, which can be detected around this Bosomtwe. Would that be the case, Edward? Yes, thank you, Edward. So that was the case of vegetation around the lake once in a while. Then I go to this wager also in Ghana, around Accra. There was a little variability of the area. So it was reported by the Water Resource Commission that when they went to do ground samples, the levels were changing every year. And this is the information that they required to know which points they missed on their water collection. Then we went with them to look at what was collected, and we found there are times when the person who went to measure missed points, and now we could have an idea on when. So this is the information that we are trying to address, Bako.
Yes, Ken, I think we are saying the same thing. The only thing I want to highlight is if we generate statistics, it means that we have a spatial representation of all those classes. Do you agree?
Yes, that's true.
Perhaps my question is, if we want to have only the case of 1 year, is it possible to have the spatial representation of those classes?
Aha, so this will be like a more detailed analysis for particular year.
Something like this, because sometimes we have needs from partners asking us to have the delimitation of the wetlands around a water body. Or all the classes around a water body. So by having this map, I think it will help. Because for me, before having the statistic, it means that we have already the map. If we haven't the data, you will not establish the statistic in the area.
That is very true. And actually, I forgot to mention about the time. We can do it per month or 3 months or quarterly.
Okay.
And here manually I can do a certain period of 6 months. So I'll be happy to do an example for an area of your choice so that we can see if it's possible to get for 1 year or 1 month. Yes, Bako. I'm waiting for your example. You prefer Burkina Faso where? Anywhere?
Anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
this is a good example. Yeah.
Because this barrage, I realize the barrages, some of them are dams, so the results are not the same.
Okay.
I need somewhere where it's things are not moving. Okay, so I could do a small example because I can see my colleague has joined.
If you have a lake around a lake, it will be better. Yeah.
Let me do this example for Diof.
Okay.
This is the pink lake in Dakar.
Okay, in Senegal.
Is an they even have it has been stagnant.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Diof. This is special request for you.
Okay, thanks very much for considering me. But I'm currently in Burkina Faso.
Oh, no problem. Next time you come back to Dakar. This is Lake Ratba or La Crosa. Sometimes it changes its color because of salt. So it's fairly reasonable. I'll just change the dates to specific dates. For example, I know I was there around 2019. So we could do for 1 year. So the best thing about this tool is that anyone can use it for free and you can test it anytime. It would be very nice as well to see how it works. So this is fairly simple. You can take a screenshot as I'll also update this example in the slides. Then I can run it. And I'll be able to see the results in a few minutes. So this one uses the Landsat data, the water observation from space to get also very good results. So the tool might take some time, but it normally completes. Otherwise, it's good also to report that next week, the session will be in French, led by Dr. Mansour. Then the other week will be back in English, giving people an opportunity to participate in these discussions. Special request for Bako. So here is the interesting results that in 1 year, 2019, these were the changes observed for Lake Ratba in Dakar. So the time I was there, I was told that the lake sometimes it's stagnant. However, there are times when they look at it and say they are like around August, there are some changes. Then there's some rains around that time in September, then the lake will be able to recharge. So there are times where there's occasional, so within 1 year, this could be the result. So you can use this result and change accordingly. So this is per month. You can do it per 3 months or per quarter. Very useful for communicating with the various stakeholders. I believe I've done almost several examples, which I'll give you an opportunity to have a look at the tool during your time, and you can give us feedback, or you've tried an example already as we are talking and you've seen very interesting results.